gentlemen, T. Latchford and Scott Heath.
She goes behind the mirror when I look from the web she's made outside the mirror, in between the door, back behind the mirror, hidden from the world, a reflection of the truth is what I wanted to find. Blocking the mirror was a web suspending time. Image of myself is what I expected to see. Hiding was the spider and the forces that would be. And the spider, she goes behind the mirror when I look. Web she's made outside the mirror, in between the door, back behind the mirror, hidden from the world. Woven was the web I saw and the shadows in my sight. I recognized the problems and the tangles in my life. In reality, the spider had always lurked there. It represented all the dark, unseen fear. And the spider, she goes behind the mirror when I look. Web she's made outside the mirror, in between the door, back behind the mirror, hidden from the world.
Woo! T. Latchford and Scott Heath. Welcome to the studio. Welcome to the Lockdown Livestream. This is great to have you two here.
Thanks for having us, Paul.
Absolutely, absolutely. And real quick, I just want to say thank you to everybody that is tuning in live or watching after the fact. This is the Lockdown Livestream. We do this every Sunday at 6 p.m. with a different band or artist every single week. So, T and Scott, what do you two have for us today?
Well, the first song that we just did was called Behind the Mirror. And it was basically a song about ego and discovering that it's you aren't really who you think you are.
Yeah.
So basically that's what that song is about. The next song coming up is called Conflict Consumption, which is also about the ego. And it's saying, okay, the ego's there. I don't have to listen to it.
Right.
You know, I'm tired of this.
Yeah.
So it's almost an awakening at that point. You're saying, you know, I don't have to listen to these things in my head, you know. And
Yeah.
these influences that are negative. So.
No, absolutely. And that's one of the things that I find so interesting and fascinating about your music, and what makes it really unique is just how spiritually driven it is. You know, in a lot of ways, I think all music is spiritually driven to an extent,
Yes.
but some people realize that in their writing more than others, and I think you two have a very comprehensive understanding of that, and so it's really cool. I've never really quite heard music, you know, the kind of music that you two write. It's a very unique experience.
Well, thank you.
Absolutely, no, I love it, and I can't wait to be able to share it with everyone else. So.
Awesome.
All right.
set me free. I have to look towards the light. I see no compromise. The choice is black and white. There is no way that you can have your say. I will not be consumed. I will not be by you. I will not be consumed. No, I will not be consumed. I will not be by you. I will not be consumed. No. Your game again, you don't exist, so you cannot win. I can't hear your persuasive talk. You'll go away, but you'll be back someday. I will not be consumed. I will not be by you. I will not be consumed. No, I will not be consumed. I will not be by you. I will not be consumed. No.
That's a great song.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So, let me ask. I'm going to throw you a quick question. So, in your songwriting, how do you two go about it? How do you start? Because one of the things that I've noticed is it's very well orchestrated. Like the parts that you guys write, it doesn't seem like there's a whole lot of randomness going on. You seem very methodical and meticulous about your writing.
I think it's called practice. It's, you just, you know.
All right, listen up, Virginia Beach. You need to practice.
That's right. And you need to enjoy, you know, the songs and just say, hey, there would be a good little riff here or there, or,
Yeah.
you know, you just kind of discover that as you're playing it.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, this song is an older song. She's been doing this for ages, and early 2000s probably, and I used to play bass on it in an original band about 15 years ago or more or less, and now I just picked the song up on acoustic to play it with her, and I just wrote these simple little lines to go along with it. I view the song as kind of a heavy song. Mm-hmm. Kind of a rock song, you know, more motivated that way than an acoustic song. But yeah, it's a wonderful song. I had different ideas about it years ago, but now I have. When you pick up another instrument and go to creating on it, it sort of takes on a different flavor.
Interesting. That's a good way to look at it. That's something I've noticed a lot in production, is that as you start to move around, as you start to, you know, take a piece that you wrote on, say, guitar or on a piano, and you start to move it around into other instruments, it can, as you say, take on an entirely different flavor and really, really start to change. Sometimes for better, sometimes for worse, but, you know, that's where experimentation comes into play. Now, so what are your backgrounds in music, and how did you two get together and start doing what you do?
Well, me, of course.
Don't all answer at once.
He goes way back.
If you want to talk a bit about me for 3 or 4 hours, I'm an old man, so like I grew up in the '60s, and of course my influences were the Beatles, the Moody Blues, all of those guys, Bob Dylan, all those guys back then, and I grew up listening to music, and when I was in college, my English professor, we listened to the Moody Blues and the Beatles, and we bounced off of those two groups. So to me, lyrics were always in the forefront. I always thought that lyrics should have a really great meaning and should carry great meaning, because it's when you sing a song or speak words, it's a living word, and it goes out into the universe. It's like a prayer. So I always thought that lyrics were super important.
Yeah,
and should tell a really good story.
I tend to fully agree with what you just said there on that. I think your lyrics are very, very important. And one of the things that I think newer songwriters get wrong is, say they're writing a verse, right? And say there's 4 lines in the verse. The first line is good, the second line is good, the fourth line is good, and the third line is terrible. But it kind of gets them from the second line to the fourth line, so they just go, whatever, it kind of works. And I think it's an imperative that people stop doing that and really try to be deliberate, because as you say, it's a living word you're putting out into the universe, and you should be deliberate with that. And it's going to make for a better song. It's going to make for a better verse. It's going to tell a better story, which ultimately is the goal.
I mean, I'll go through a song and just make slight changes here and there. And even years later, just, that's not really what I meant. I need to change this one word from for to through. And it makes all the difference. It's like, that feels right. So you do it the best you can with what you got for then, because that's where you're supposed to be. And then later on, if something else comes to you, it's like, that's what it needs to go to,
Now that's interesting. So you'll go back even years later and start to rework a song?
Well, because it has changed over the years.
Right.
Like he said, with the going from the bass to the acoustic, it changed the flavor of it.
Yeah.
So, it has matured.
Yeah.
They were infants, and now they've grown up.
Now that's interesting, because I've noticed I have a hard time going back and revisiting old songs to rewrite them. I find I'd rather write a new one, just because there's almost like this attachment to the way that the song was. That's like, well, I don't want to mess with it for whatever reason. I don't know why that is either. It's kind of a weird thing. I think I'd actually benefit from going back to some of the older stuff and reworking it for now.
Yeah, because you look, even when you go back and read a book, when you reread it, it's gonna, oh wow, I know what they're saying, or I didn't think of it that way. So that's kind of how I do it.
Well, when you redo a song, I mean, think of somebody like Clapton that did a song, back. He did one way back, and with live electric, and then years later he turned around and did it acoustically. And a lot of people do versions of songs through the years, and each decade you hear a different version. It picks up a whole different atmosphere.
That's a good point.
Layla was the song I was thinking about that Clapton did electrically in the 70s, and then he turned around and did the acoustic version. And it was just a whole different thing, It just was like a brand new song.
Yeah, that's a really good example. All right, well, let's see what you got next for us.
Sure, this one's called Damaged Goods. crossroads, I had failed to see the light. I searched for direction, instead my rig jackknifed, damaged goods, damaged goods. I couldn't find my pathway, and by then it was too late. Reaching for the pedal, I couldn't make the brake. Letting go my grip, came the mighty crash. Feeling how helpless, there was no going back. Damaged goods, damaged goods. Impact was over, I struggled for some air. I'd survived the crash, but the damage was there. My load, it was scattered, it would never be the same. When looking for the answers, I had only me to blame. Damaged goods, damaged goods. Damaged goods, damaged goods. Sure. This blue sky? No, for one second. Fool and the sage are walking hand in hand to do or to be, and how to understand decisions to be made. Controls inside of you, life or judgment tree, determine what you're due. Future past, illusions cast, and now is all that's real. Yeah! Breath of forethought, the focus is your choice. Prison or set free, your heart is your true voice. Yeah, contrast is the game, easy to prefer, so we can create an expansion will occur. Future past, illusions cast, and now is all that's real. Yeah!
Oh, that's a great one.
Oh, thank you.
That's a great one. That one's a lot of fun. It's
It is a upbeat
Yeah.
type of
yeah,
song.
very very upbeat, and I also I really like the message, which is something that I want to get into in just a moment. But first, Scott answered the question about his background, but I'm curious about your background and how you got into music.
Well, my first instrument was a piano, so I started very young with that. But I've always wanted to play the guitar. I've always wanted to play the guitar, and even though I wasn't able to participate with a lot of the '60s, I love the '60s and the singers like Janis Joplin and I just started with playing the guitar and started writing songs for my family to begin with.
Really?
Just family songs, stories about things that happened in my family, and that was fun. And so
So now here you are.
here I am.
The rest is history. All right, so let's dive into the philosophy a little bit. Because we've spoken about this on a few occasions now. About personalities such as Abraham Hicks and just spirituality in general and manifestations and religion and God and all the big topics that everybody's scared to talk about.
Right, right.
Well, not everybody. So what is your whole philosophy, and how has that impacted your songwriting?
To begin with writing these songs, a lot of them, this one is a newer one, but a lot of them I start writing back in 2000 with the metaphysical songs. So, but when I wrote them, I had studied A Course in Miracles, and I wrote the songs and later on read them, and it's like, wow, that's pretty neat. Did I really write those words? And then as I went through some trial and tribulation, went through some hard times, I began to awaken more, and the songs meant more. And it's like, wow, I really feel them here. It's not just about knowing what the words are saying. It's about feeling it and experiencing it,
Right.
and really knowing what they meant. So,
Yeah, that's a fascinating way to approach songwriting, and it's interesting that you say that when you said you almost can't believe that you wrote the words.
yeah.
That's something that I think a lot of songwriters, at least a lot that I've talked to, they experience something similar, where it's almost like they go into this flow state, and then when they finally come out of it, there's all these words on a page, and that you like physically wrote them down, but you're kind of wondering, it's just like at some point it feels like the song starts writing itself, and you're just a conduit almost.
Yeah.
Which is an interesting experience, and then it becomes, like you mentioned, you start to understand your own writing more and more and more, and it's almost like something speaking to you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, something's teaching you along the way, too.
Yeah.
A lot of times I'll notice, and I know everybody's done this, you're driving. And in the state of driving, it's like these brilliant words come. So you're like, oh, I need to write them down. You either pull over or you speak into your phone, and have
Right.
a recording device or something, It's a relaxing state. It is a flow.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the funny thing about driving. It's like nobody's really paying attention when they're driving.
Well, maybe that's the thing. The focus, you're so focused, is, you're not just
Right, you're not-
randomly thinking of these things, just random negative thoughts.
Yeah, you're not blocking anything.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's probably another reason why, like when you're relaxing in a pool, all of a sudden all of these thoughts come because you're not doing anything. You're not worried about anything or focusing on anything too hard. So now, Scott, did you have something?
I've watched her evolve as a songwriter, go through stages. And, back years ago, she wrote a lot about tragedy and personal, hardship. and this sort of thing. And now, through the years, she's evolved into presenting her songs more as a uplifting sort of a teaching kind of a thing, where they're more inspirational. All of them are positive, even though some of them have negative connotations. But the newer songs has shown how she's evolved as a songwriter and a lyricist.
Yeah. Now that brings up an interesting question. About how many songs would you say you've written?
20-something, at least. Yeah, and a lot of them I have on like bits of paper and just scattered and not really together. But probably about 25, 26.
Probably more than
Probably
that.
more than that. But yeah, as you can see, we've been playing like in different bands for a long time. So like you said, I've evolved.
So let's talk about that now. You're up in Charlotte or Charlottesville, in that area?
In that area, yeah.
Now, are you originally both from Virginia or?
Yes.
Yeah, we're from Central Virginia.
Okay.
Up in the mountains.
Gotcha. So,
Yeah.
what kind of bands have you guys been a part of? Were they bands that you joined, or did you start them, or what? How did that all come to be?
We'll talk that Hat Creek first.
Well, I've been in some, all kinds of different bands in the past, but some original bands. We were in a band called Blue Sky, which was out of the early 2000s on up, and all of us wrote music in the band, and it were all different kinds of songs. And I wrote, I'm a songwriter too, but I don't really. We don't do any of my songs. My songs are older songs, but they were very, very spiritually oriented songs, and
We'll be revisiting them. Oh yeah.
yeah, but it's all evolved quite a bit over the years.
Yeah.
And a cover band, that was an original band, Blue Sky. Then we were in a cover band, Prime Cut band, because people don't hire you real quick when you're in an original band, unless you're known for something,
Yeah.
So we did some cover songs, and we would pepper in the originals until people got used to them.
Gotcha,
yeah. And
Well, back in those days, I want to say we were young. Of course, we were old, but we were young. We had a lot of energy, and we played all over like UVA campus, and we played, we were in our 40s or so, and we were playing for kids in college, and it was awesome. I mean, it was really great. We were playing all original music, and they were really digging it, and we played all around Charlottesville. It was a lot of fun. Of course, Charlottesville is not like that anymore, so everything's changed.
Right.
And currently, I'm singing with a girl who does the harmony right now. I have a box, but I mean, usually she's with me, and we're called Alchemy's Muse, and we play cover songs, but we'll pepper in the originals, to get people used to them.
Nice. Now, so when you go to write a song, do you write the song first and then you take and add guitar after the fact, or do you sit down together and hash out ideas? How does that process
I write
unfold?
the lyrics with the guitar chords, and he colors it with the notes.
Gotcha.
So it's,
Seems like a good process.
Yeah.
An efficient process.
that's how it's been.
Yeah. I find songwriting with other people it's interesting because it can, on the one hand, it provides you a great opportunity to essentially defeat writer's block. But on the other hand, it can be, there can be conflict in the fact that there might be two different visions for the song, and you're not quite sure how to navigate, like, oh, well, do we want to use these chords or those chords, or, so that seems to be an effective way where it's like, okay, you sit down, you come up with some lyrics and some chords, and then have Scott come in and do what Scott does best.
We've collaborated on things.
Yeah.
She's been writing a song, and you know, she'll let me listen to it, and I might say, well, why don't you try this chord there?
Yeah.
You know,
yeah,
why,
he has done
that one may, you know, give it a little bit of distinction, something that's different. I think
Right.
each song should be a little bit different from anything else in some way, shape, or form, and so you try to throw a chord in here or there that isn't anticipated if you can.
Yeah.
You know, and she'll take my you know, advice sometimes, and sometimes she won't. But, you know,
That's the process.
but that's it.
Yeah.
So
Now, I also noticed you two do something very interesting in your writing, and that's you play with time a lot. You know, going into different time signatures, and that's something that you know you don't see that too often, and it's really really interesting when you do, because especially when you pull it off effectively, like the way that you guys have done it, always works really really well. It's not disruptive to the song. So that's something I just personally find very interesting about your writing.
she does that.
I do.
She does that. I don't know how she comes up with that or why she does that, but she does it. And like that conflict consumption, I think has 3 different time signatures or whatever you want to call it in it, and it's very interesting. Makes the song very interesting.
Yeah.
You know, but when you grow up with the Beatles and bands like that, I mean, back in those days, it was common. You know, may not be as common these days. I don't know, but you know, I grew up with bands that did all kinds of things. You know, that nothing was. You could expect anything, and
Right.
and so, you know, I like the way she does that time signature kind of thing.
Well, thank you.
Change around stuff.
No, I do too. It makes the songs. It's really interesting, and it shifts you into a different groove, and then you bring it right back. But again, it's not in an abrupt or disruptive kind of a way. It's done very tastefully.
Hard for a drummer, right?
That would be interesting for a drummer. Yeah, definitely. You'd have to go back to the point you made earlier. Practice.
Yeah, there you go.
All right. Well, let's do a couple more songs here.
Which one?
Blue sky. Okay. Always wanting made me feel so sad. Never looking at what I had. Seeing dark clouds and skies of gray. So then I don't. Oh no, I won't. Blue skies on a cloudy day. Sunlight will shine my way. Oh, blue skies on a cloudy day. Sunlight will shine my way. Will shine my way. Yeah. Changing slowly, regarding will, living life and feeling more fulfilled. Letting go so love can flow my way, and then you'll see, baby, look at me. Blue skies on a cloudy day. Sunlight will shine my way. Oh, blue skies on a cloudy day. Sunlight will shine my way. Keeping still within the light, knowing now I knew staying here in the present day. Oh, I won't leave. This world will be blue skies on a cloudy day. Sunlight will shine my way. Oh, blue skies on a cloudy day. Sunlight will shine my way. Ready? I think so. You try to fix me, I'm not broke. You try to add to me part you think aren't whole. Just see me for who I really am. I have all I need within. It's not difficult for me to truly be who I really am, from whom you seem to see I am beautiful. I'm a miracle. I have much to give. It's the love I have. I don't expect how you should be. If you are still enough, know instinctively. Just hear me for what I have to say. Words don't teach, but they can show a way. It's not difficult for me to clearly see who you really are, from whom you seem to be. You are beautiful. You're a miracle. You have much to give. It's the love you have. How quick are we to point and blame? To those of us who dare not think the same. Just know until we heal our pain, the outside world will always seem insane. It's not difficult to know that you and me, not apart, can live in harmony. We are beautiful. We're a miracle. We have much to give.
That is a beautiful, beautiful song.
Thank you. That song has taught me a lot.
You know, it's while you're playing that, I was thinking a little bit about that, and my question was going to be, you know, how that song seems like it's full of like reflective energy, almost. You know, so let's dig into that a little bit. What has that song taught you?
Well, I started with like the first verse 15 years ago, and I put it aside. And it's like, I don't know what will go with it. And I changed it around a little bit, and things just started coming to me.
Yeah.
So it's like, this song was given to me to tell the world they're beautiful, to recognize my worth, and that, you know, we have to look at ourselves as being good to recognize it in others, you know?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, no, that's a really powerful song. I'm really excited for people to hear that song in particular, and I hope that one really, really spreads, because there's just such a nice message, and the way that you play the song too, the chords, everything about it just has this very easy listening kind of. It's very inviting, and you can just kind of relax.
well, thank you.
You know, so there's something a very special quality to that song. Now, I'm a little bit curious as to, so you said you started with that song 15 years ago.
Yeah.
So how do you keep track of these songs, or the parts of these songs? Because I know, I mean, you know, there are things that I've written a year ago that I couldn't find it if you asked me, you know? So how have you managed to hang on to this stuff for so many years?
Well, they still kind of linger in my head.
Yeah.
But, you know, I'll write them down like in a songbook and, you know, refer back to it. Of course, it's got lots of pencil scratches and words all over it, but, you know, I'll refer back to it. And especially if it's really speaking in my head.
Yeah.
I'll have like a song wake me up at night. And
Wow.
I've had like Damaged Goods that I played earlier.
Mm-hmm.
It would not let me go to sleep until I finished it. And it kept me up all night.
Yep.
So,
Yeah, I've been there.
yeah.
Now, have you ever forgotten about a song, and then just years later it just pops into your head and you're like, ooh, and then you just have to basically get after it and make it
Yeah.
happen?
Well, and I have to be inspired to go back to it.
Right.
I'll think about it, and it's like, do I need to go and work with that one yet? There's one I got called Hell in the Hallway, and it's like a rock and roll song, and it's like,
Okay.
yeah, you know, it's that in-between time, but in transition, where you don't know what's coming, you're away from the old routine of things, and it's that just space that, okay, relax, it's okay. You know, everything is fine. Everything's working for the good, and so I've thought about revisiting that, but it just really hasn't, you know, definitely inspired me to go back to it.
Yeah, I hear that. Actually, you know, it's funny having this conversation, because usually, you know, I mentioned not too long ago, you know, just a few moments ago, really, that I don't really go back and revisit my old songs. But recently I went back and revisited an old production, something that I had started working on, and it never really went anywhere, and I just, you know, basically moved on from it. And for whatever reason, I was going through some old folders on my computer, and I found it. And I was like, oh, you know what, this would be really cool. And I just, as soon as I listened to it, I was like, oh, no, this is all wrong. I got to change that, fix this, fix that. You know, and a day later, I'm like, wow, this is done, and it's actually pretty cool.
So the timing of it was just right for you to find it.
Yeah.
And you were inspired to, now's the time.
Yep.
Yeah,
No, absolutely.
that's how it works.
So I can relate at least a little bit to that process. But that is really cool and really fascinating. You know, the way ideas kind of move through time, and feelings kind of move through time, and you can just, you know, be with them in one moment, and then 15 years, you know, go by, and boom, you're back again with that idea, looking to shape it into something more fitting,
Yeah.
perhaps, or more fitting for the current moment, which is kind of cool.
Well, as the years go by, you mature, and it's not just the times that change. You change.
Yeah.
You know, and you can do more of different things with songs to make them mature.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, Scott, I'm curious. Have you had any bass parts or guitar parts on any of her songs from 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago that you've gone back and decided, you know what, I wanna relook at this. I want to change what I'm doing here. Like how has that evolved?
I can actually say yes that I have, and I do that, because 20 years later, I mean, you're a young guy, I'm an old guy, so I've been through several decades, and you haven't been through as many as I have. So, when you look back on songs that are 20 or 30 years old, even older, then they captured a certain vibe back then that was going on, so to speak, and then you bring it into today, and you want it to maybe bring about a little bit different vibe,
Yeah.
so to speak. I played songs 20 years ago that I played differently from the way I play now. Just because, I don't know. A lot of these songs I played years and years ago, but they're like brand new to me now.
That's interesting.
Because back then I played bass on them, and I played in a band, and now I'm revisiting them years later, and I'm playing guitar on them. So I hear them in an entirely different way. I rearrange them in my own head and color them differently from the way the guitar player colored them back then.
Yeah.
And he's a better, more skilled player now, both.
Yeah, I mean, you
bass
get
and
better
everything,
as you
too.
go through the years. You get better than the way you were.
Hopefully.
I mean,
Hopefully.
you become a better musician, right?
Yeah.
You become a better writer. You look at things differently, and so you have a tendency to be inspired by things, differently, so I guess, yeah, things change.
Yes, they do. Well, imagine
But,
imagine going 15 years and not getting any better.
that'd be a hard road to hoe.
That
wouldn't
would
it?
be. But you know what? If you can go 15 years and still not get any better, if you still keep going, there's something to be said for that too.
Well, people can go 15 years and be in a rut. I mean, it can happen. I mean, really good musicians and bands evolve.
Mm-hmm.
And they change. And I remember we would listen to bands years ago, and they'd come out with they'd have a couple of 2 or 3 super albums, and then you'd listen. Then the 4th album they'd come out with was totally off the wall. It was like, oh my God, how did they do that? Why did they do that shit? How did they? How could they? But it was their evolution. They evolved. And we didn't like the direction they took, but now, 40 years later and 20 albums down the road, you listen to all of them now, and you see how every one of them changed through the years and did something different. So
now that's a good question, actually. Have you guys ever taken a break from music? Was there ever a period where you're just like you didn't feel motivated to play or perform or write?
I took a break. I was in a toxic relationship and took a couple years break. But when I got out of it, I was right back into playing music and so happy about it. I missed
took
it.
several long breaks and didn't do anything.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't do anything at all. I mean, I didn't study music. I didn't write anything. I didn't do anything with music. I was involved in other aspects of my life, doing other things, and I didn't play music at all.
Yeah. Yeah, there was maybe about a year, well, maybe about a 2-year period where I'd almost given up on music entirely. You know, every now and again I'd pick up a guitar, but I'd like completely lost my, you know, most of my chops and skills. And once I finally decided to, you know, really pick it back up again, my brain knew where all the chords were, but my fingers didn't. And so it was like, I mean, I could still kind of play, but it was messy. And I was like, oh, whoa, it was a really disorienting feeling, you know, when in your mind you're so used to being able to just play, to, you know, have a like struggle to get a chord, and you're like, that is so bizarre. You know, you have to retrain your hands essentially.
That's right.
But that's something I don't think it's talked about a whole lot, is that musicians have to, well, not have to, but sometimes take breaks, and might go years, and you know, it can look like giving up, it can feel like giving up, but ultimately whether it is giving up is on you, and it's never too late to get back into it.
That's right, never too late.
Exactly. So, well, that's really cool. So let's go ahead and do a couple more tunes. If you got one or two more for us,
Yeah.
and then we'll wrap this thing up.
Sure. Turn the light. Oh, Fantasy Storm. Which one? Okay.
Night is falling and it won't be long. The wind's blowing as it comes a storm. You've seen somebody to remind you again the way you're going and where you've been. The world is luring with its lustful face. We compete to win in its useless race. You think you get there and that you have won, but in the end, never get it done. Do you know who you are? A child of the light. Do you know from where you've come? Awaken to the light. Night is falling, now the stars shine bright. The wind that blows relieves the heat of the night. You've seen somebody to remind you of how you are loved and you're present now. With alignment of the self we find congruent with the Most High. Cooperation for all will bind, and peace on earth forever in time. Praying forth for all to see the light within you and me. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done. their reality. I'll see the good I choose to see. Sight alone can see the storm. Open your mind and you'll sense more. Time flows without a thought. Yeah. Thoughts rule and shadows veil. Day flows into the night now. Light seen before the day. Clouds roll swift to clear my mind. Peace and strength is what I find. Words sail through open air. Thunders crash and they're not there. Time flows without a thought. Yeah. Thoughts rule and shadows veil. Day flows into the night now. Light seen before the day. Time flows without thought, yeah. Thoughts rule and shadows veil. Day flows into the night now. Light seen before the day. Safe from extraneous debris. Lightning strikes and splits a tree. Streaks of light fill the sky. The world I know is just a lie. Time flows without a thought, yeah. Thoughts rule and shadows veil. Day flows into the night now. Light seen before the day. Rain drips off my skin. Wind moves through my hair.
Wow, that's a really nice song too. I really love the orchestration there and the way that you two both play around with the guitar, and it's almost like they're communicating. And when one picks up, the other one drops off, and they just kind of weave in and out, between each other. That's really cool.
Thank you.
That's really
my
nice.
equanimity song. I love that word. It's my favorite word. And it's about, the peace that you can find inside, when there's chaos going on. And we've experienced a lot with, the pandemic and things going
Yeah.
on. We need things like that to remind us that we can be peaceful within.
Absolutely.
So
No, that's a great message, and it's a great way to end the show.
Sure.
So I just want to say, T. Latchford, Scott Heath, thank you both so very, very much for coming on and sharing your music with me and with the audience here and with everybody that has tuned in and is watching in the future. Thank you guys as well. We really, really appreciate it.
thank you, Paul, for asking us to come on the show.
Thank
It's
you.
been great. It's been fun. We've been looking forward to it.
Absolutely. Well, me too. And it's been such a joy, and I can't wait to be able to go back and watch the performances. It's actually a really cool experience because I get one experience being in the room, seeing it live,
Right.
and then a totally different experience when I go back and watch it.
Right.
It's even though I've technically seen it once, it's still a fresh experience. So it's kind of cool. I really, that's one of the small joys that I get out of this. You know, it's really nice actually. So anyhow, thank you both. Once again, this is the Lockdown live stream. We do this every Sunday at 6 p.m. with a different band or artist. So catch us next week and enjoy your coming week. Have a good night.